Alright, so here we are. Got a hot water tank, or water heater tank. I've already got the water cut off at the street. I've got the hot and cold lines open inside the house. I've got the breaker turned off at the panel box. I've got a water hose hooked up here. This line's running outside of the house, outside the crawl space door. Got this little valve opened up to release any pressure, drain it down somewhat. I'm going to cut, there's 2 3/4 inch copper lines up here. I'm going to cut those loose. Going to make sure with my wiggy that the power is turned off. Disconnect this, pull this one out, put a new one in. Okay, power's gone. Okay. Never trust whoever labeled the breakers only. Make sure you check it yourself. I always try to keep up with my tools pretty good under a house, put them back in my bucket because it's very easy to lose your stuff. Now what I've got, these copper lines, is this tool. Yep, that is a whole lot easier. Alright, I believe it is completely disconnected. This sucker's going to be heavy. Alright, I don't have a lot of light in here. My headlamp battery's about burnt out. Fix and sneeze. But anyway, got the new water tank in. This is a low boy. I guess it just sits a little fatter and a little lower. You know, I don't have this piece. I'm not sure, there wasn't one on the other one. That's just like a, I think that's a, what, a high pressure pop off. I guess, you know, you would normally run a line out to get it outside the house. I have to see if they want me to put one of those on. Inspector might say something about that, I'm not sure. But anyway, not a whole lot left to do but hook the lines up, but you do need to know which one of these supply lines is coming in and which one's going out, because you got to hook the supply to the cold and the discharge to the hot side. And I've got, this is what I've got. These are SharkBite fittings. Man, can't see anything under here. This is just a flex line. How long is this? 12 inches? Something like that? 18 inches. But they requested to have a cutoff on here. So this will obviously be on the supply side, which is the cold water. Gonna SharkBite into the 3/4 copper, and then this is a 3/4 fitting that'll go into the hot water tank. This is basically the same thing without a cutoff. And yeah, I was gonna look to see if I needed any pipe dope. It's got a rubber grommet in there, so I do not need pipe dope. So I'm just gonna hook this up. Oh, something I meant to say at the beginning of the video. We're gonna get this set back up. I was gonna say it to myself as much as anything. Make sure when, and I'm gonna make sure when all this is said and done, that I hook the water up and let it run all the way into the tank. I'm gonna cut a hot water line on in the house and let it come all the way out before I ever turn the power back on. You can burn the element up inside of here if you don't have water in the tank. It's not a very costly fix, but it's a time-consuming thing, and you have to go back to the hardware store and buy it and replace it and all that stuff. It'd cost you another hour or two. I'm looking for a file now because I want to file that copper water line coming in. I thought I brought a file. I must not have put it in here. Could have swore I did. What I'm about to do is go back to the truck, look, and then realize it's in this bucket somewhere. Here it is. I'm gonna file these copper feed lines. I'm gonna file those ends down. I'm also gonna take some sandpaper and smooth. That's all I had as the way of sandpaper. Smooth it out. The guy at Lowe's reminded me that you want to make sure when you're putting SharkBite connections on copper that you file that down and smooth it out real good, because it can mess up the little ring inside of that SharkBite fitting. I know it looks like I'm feeling this with my gloves on, but I do have one finger that's torn out, so I can feel if there's any burrs or anything like that. That all feels good. So this was my cold side right here. So I'm gonna double check. Worst case scenario is I'd have to switch them over at the top, but I'm pretty sure this is the cold side. I want to make sure it handles where I can get to it. Oh yeah, that went on good. That went on really good. I'm going to slide this other one on. If you hadn't ever used SharkBite fittings, which you probably have if you're doing this, or I don't. Man, they are wonderful. I wouldn't plumb an entire house up this way because it'd be way too expensive. That ain't gonna go on. I do have a PEX kit for crimping and all, but I had never soldered wiring before. Man, that is not going to go on. Right about the time I said they were wonderful. I don't think it went far enough. No way to get no leverage on it. Push it. Shucks. There it went, there it went. Awesome. It slid up on there. Alright. So, I can get these hooked up. Be careful not to cross thread anything. Water, man. Water will find a weak spot. So this is what I've done so far. Can you see? Can't really see anything. That valve got turned over. Sorry. This is the cold water coming in. Got a water line here. Let me see if I can do better. Okay. So over to the right there, you can see that blue handle valve. That's the cold water coming in into the blue cold side on this water tank. And then this is actually will be hot water coming back out, going through that line supplying the house. And that blue handle valve, I'm gonna cut that off before I go out to the street and cut the water on. That way, when I cut the water on out of the street, then I can come in here and crack that valve open. See if I got any water leaks. So what I'm gonna do right now is go ahead and hook the electricity up. And then I'll be just about done, I think. Alright, everything is hooked up. I went ahead and got the wire, electricity hooked all back up. It's, you know, black, white, and a ground wire. This is 220, so you got basically 2 hots coming in. I had to go outside to grab a rag. Sorry, I'm trying to do this while holding the flashlight in one hand and camera in the other. But I had to go out to my trailer to grab a rag. So while I was out there, I went ahead and cut the water back on at the street. So I'm gonna go ahead. Oh, what I did do, I had the cold and the hot turned on in a bathroom sink in the house. So when I cut the water back on, of course, the cold water started coming out. And I said, well, if I cut the cold water off in the bathroom, if I've got these two right here at the hot water tank backwards, as far as, you know, the cold and hot switched over right here, I would have had hot water coming out at the sink in there. When I cut the cold water off at the sink inside, I did not have hot water coming out of the open side in the house. That's a mouthful and that's confusing. But anyway, all that to say, I feel like I've got this plumbed up the correct way. So I'm gonna set this, see if I can do this with. I'm cutting this water on. So definitely sounds like I got it plumbed up right. I can hear it filling the tank up. I guess you can. Something I did check, this valve, this drain valve on the bottom, I made sure that was closed. It was, but I just made sure that was closed so that I didn't start running water up underneath the house. So I'm gonna let that fill up and make sure I got hot water coming out inside the house. And that will be about it, other than if they want a line hooked up here, which I'm not prepared to do that today. And this thing came with a blanket, so I might as well put that on while I'm here. So my battery died on me under the house, but I gist of what I was doing. The only thing I had left to do, like I said, I'd already cut the water on and had the hot water valve inside the house, had the bathroom sink turned on. And that way I knew that there was water going all the way into the water tank and all the way out of it before I turned the power back on. So I did that, turned the power on, and I did put that blanket around it, taped it all up, and everything's good to go. I did not stay long enough for it to heat up and verify that it was getting hot, but I feel sure that it is or will. And when I turned the power back on, there was no trip break or anything like that. It took me an hour and a half to do that job. I had about just under $500 in material to do that. So if that gives you any kind of idea of, you know, what it would cost you to do it or what you would charge somebody else for your time and material. The hardest part of that job was getting the old tank out and the new tank in. Now I did, when I turned that water on, I could hear water dripping further on up inside the house, and I crawled up in there, and it was a 90-degree turn on the copper pipe that was corroded. So I did cut all the water back off. I cut that out and had to run back over here to Lowe's and replace that section of line. But that really wasn't part of changing that water tank out. But that's it. That wasn't a very hard job at all to do. The main thing is make sure that you know that you have that tank full of water and even coming back out through the hot side of the house before you turn the power on. If not, within what I've been told, within 2 or 3 minutes, that heating element will be burnt up and you have to pull it out, and it's a headache. So anyway, that's all. Like it, share it, comment it, hit the bell, subscribe. Thank you guys.